Inside the cockpit of his Hawker Hurricane, Flying Officer Ludwik Paskiewicz exhaled deeply. While the Battle of Britain raged across the skies, he and his fellow Polish pilots of No. 303 Squadron found themselves grounded, relegated to routine training exercises. The Royal Air Force, haunted by Poland's swift defeat, still doubted their abilities. Then Paskiewicz spotted it, a German aircraft silhouetted against the horizon. He radioed his British commander. No response. The orders were clear: do not engage. But as he watched the enemy through his gunsight, years of combat experience and the burning desire to defend his adopted home pushed against military discipline. These were the same aircraft that had devastated his homeland, and now they threatened his newfound refuge. As he pushed the throttle forward, he smiled to himself. It was time to show what the Poles were really made of. The German invasion of Poland in September 1939 was swift and brutal. Showcasing its blitzkrieg tactics for the very first time, a massive wave of bomb strikes, mechanized ground assaults, and ruthless terror attacks on the local civilian population allowed the Third Reich, aided by the Soviet invasion from the east 2 weeks later, to take the nation's capital, Warsaw, in less than a month. However, though their homeland was taken from them, the Polish people were far from defeated. With Hitler now setting his sights on France, tens of thousands of Poles headed west to join the country's defense. After a series of negotiations between the government in exile and the French, the Polish Air Force, or PAF, was allowed to reform and fight alongside the French against their mutual enemy. Yet their hosts were less enthusiastic about this unsolicited help from what they saw as a group of failures. Though many Polish aviators demonstrated great skill and had considerably more combat experience than their French counterparts, they were mostly forced to watch from the sidelines. Even as France found itself desperately struggling to fight off the incoming German forces in May and June 1940, only 174 Polish airmen, around 10% of the total, were deployed. They often had to make do with substandard equipment and limited training, yet those who did see combat soon proved their worth, scoring 52 victories, 3 probable and 6 damaged enemy aircraft. With France surrendering on June 22nd, Poland and Europe's only chance of stopping the Germans was with Britain. Referring to it as the Great Island of Hope, Poles fighting in France flocked to join their countrymen who had already arrived in the previous months. This time, they were determined to exact revenge on the Germans who had ravaged their homeland. Unfortunately for the incoming Polish pilots, the British were no more confident in their abilities than the French. Royal Air Force Flight Lieutenant John A. Kent later explained, quote, "All I knew about the Polish Air Force was that it had only lasted about 3 days against the Luftwaffe, and I had no reason to suppose that they would shine any more brightly operating from England." There was also a reluctance to integrate Polish airmen into RAF squadrons due to difficulties with the language barrier. However, Winston Churchill knew that if Britain were to stand a chance of defending itself, it would need all the help it could get, saying to the Polish Prime Minister in exile, Władysław Sikorski, that they would either conquer together or perish together. As German aircraft began looming over the English countryside and the Battle of Britain got underway in July 1940, an agreement between the two governments led to the creation of Polish Air Force bomber squadrons No. 300 and 301, and fighter squadrons No. 302, and most importantly, 303. The fighter squadrons were equipped with Hawker Hurricanes, a far cry from the Polish and French aircraft they'd cut their teeth on. But before they could join the defense of Britain, they required intensive training to get to grips with the many differences, including the airspeed indicator showing miles rather than kilometers, and having to push the throttle forward instead of backward to accelerate. Language also continued to be a source of frustration, with the British and Polish pilots often resorting to mutual knowledge of basic French to try and communicate with one another. RAF attempts to teach the foreign airmen their tactics by making them ride radio-equipped tricycles in formation were viewed as patronizing by the already experienced Poles. Pilot Officer Jan Zumbach later said, quote, "The British wasting so much of our time with their childish exercises when all of us had already won their wings." For Squadron No. 303, the training seemed endless. Throughout August, even as the Battle of Britain intensified around them, They were forced to miss out on the combat by their British superiors, who still did not believe them to be adequately prepared. On August 30th, 6 squadron members were given yet another routine exercise in which they were to practice intercepting a group of friendly Blenheim bombers. As they were doing so, Flying Officer Ludwik Paskiewicz spotted a group of German aircraft nearby. Paskiewicz radioed through to inform the squadron's commanding officer, Squadron Leader R.G. Kellett. When he didn't seem to get a reply, the action-hungry Polish pilot decided to disobey orders and take matters into his own hands. Zooming toward the enemy, he soon faced what he believed to be a Dornier Do-17 bomber, later identified as a Messerschmitt Bf-110. As the German aircraft turned in his direction, from a distance of around 200 yards, Paskiewicz aimed and fired. After peppering the enemy's fuselage with rounds, he then pointed at the bomber's port engine, watching as it went up in flames. Within moments, the aircraft hurtled toward the ground, exploding in a ball of fire. Upon the squadron's return to base, Paskiewicz's superiors first scolded him for his audacity. However, they then congratulated him on the victory, a first for him and the squadron. Though he had to go against orders to do so, the pilot had finally proved that the Polish pilots of 303 were more than capable of handling themselves against the Luftwaffe. The very day after Flight Officer Ludwik Paskiewicz's daring exploits, the 303 Squadron of the Royal Air Force was declared operational and officially put on duty. The Polish pilots wasted no time. Scrambled for their first mission on August 31st, they entered a dogfight over Kent and downed 6 Messerschmitts in just 15 minutes without a single loss. As fate would have it, their initial day in battle came precisely 1 year after the Third Reich invaded their beloved homeland. Following their intense debut, the 303 engaged the Luftwaffe in multiple skirmishes, claiming more than 30 victories in just a single week. On September 2nd, the squadron took to the skies 3 separate times, with pilot officer Miroslav Feric downing a Bf-109 before making a forced landing. For his part, Sergeant Josef Franciszek claimed his first victory with the Bf-110. After striking again the next day over Dover, he was set on the path to becoming one of the Battle of Britain's top aces. By the 5th, the squadron was intercepting German bombing raids with tireless energy, taking down 5 Bf-109s and 3 Ju-88 bombers, and even when ambushed the following day, they brought down more enemy planes, despite sustaining injuries and forced landings. After their commander's injury, Flying Officer Witold Urbanowicz stepped up as acting squadron leader. Under his command, No. 303 Squadron claimed dozens of enemy planes in hundreds of successful sorties over the following weeks. In fact, Urbanowicz recalled in a report for Polish radio that after just a few days of fighting, the Polish pilots, once relegated to embarrassing training on tricycles, were deemed good enough to become instructors for the British. The 303's most remarkable achievement of the month came on the first day of the Blitz, September 7th. As the fierce German air offensive turned its sights on London's docks, the Poles were immediately vectored toward the incoming bomber streams. They tore right into the formation, scattering German bombers and fighters. That day, Pilot Officer Zumbach, Pilot Officer Feric, Sergeant Japoshnikov, and Sergeant Voidovich each claimed double victories in the skies over the city. At the end of the day, the 303 had downed 14 enemy planes and secured 4 probables over London, all without a single casualty on their side. In the following weeks, the 303's victory count was nearly 3 times that of the average British fighter squadron, with just a third of the casualty rate. This record was so unbelievable that Group Captain Stanley Vincent, the base commander at Northolt, decided to verify these wild claims personally. Accompanying the squadron right into battle, the group captain was able to witness firsthand the incredible abilities of the Polish pilots as they dove toward German bombers in their Hurricanes with unmatched impetus. Upon landing, he exclaimed, quote, "My God, they are doing it." Unlike the RAF's typical squadron maneuver tactics, the Poles charged directly into enemy formations, firing at near point-blank ranges. This bold strategy became their modus operandi, often taking them so close to enemy bombers and fighters that it seemed they might just collide. In the midst of a prolonged air battle, Sergeant Stanislav Karubin found himself chasing a German fighter at treetop level. However, as he closed in, he realized his Hurricane had run out of ammunition. But rather than breaking off, the fearless Pole pushed forward, bringing his aircraft directly above the German cockpit. The enemy pilot, startled by the mere sight of the British aircraft's belly nearly touching his canopy, instinctively dove lower to avoid a collision, crashing right into the ground. September 1940 proved both triumphant and tragic for the 303 Squadron. As German raids intensified over London, the Polish pilots' aggressive tactics yielded remarkable results. On September 11th, while intercepting bombers south of London, they claimed multiple victories against Messerschmitt Bf-110s, though at the cost of 2 of their own. The air battles grew more frequent and fierce. In a single day, the squadron achieved 15 victories, 9 under Flight Lieutenant Kent in the morning, and 6 more that afternoon under Squadron Leader Kellett and Flying Officer Urbanowitz. Several pilots were forced to bail out, and 1 did not return. On September 26th, they downed 13 enemy aircraft over Hampshire. However, the following day brought devastation. 11 Hurricane pilots, vastly outnumbered by German escorts protecting KG-77 bombers, lost 4 of their own, including Flying Officer Paskiewicz, the very pilot whose unauthorized engagement had first proven the squadron's worth. In just over a month, the Polish pilots had become heroes in England. The British public embraced them with unexpected warmth. According to historian Richard Cobb, one pilot, after being shot down over southern England, found himself invited to fill in for a missing player in a Sunday morning tennis match. Another, after crash landing in a South London backyard, met a young woman who became his wife 2 months later. The Poles had become essential to Britain's defense, with nearly 100 of them among the 350 RAF pilots protecting the skies. In these early October days, 303 Squadron wrote the final chapters of their Battle of Britain story. Over the Thames estuary, their Hurricanes still pursued German aircraft with the same determination that had defined their service. But victory came with a price. After another successful engagement, they lost Josef František, their highest-scoring pilot. The Czech airman, who had chosen to fight alongside his Polish brothers and claimed 17 enemy aircraft, took off for his final flight on a clear autumn morning. He never returned. The squadron's Battle of Britain service ended on October 11, 1940, with their transfer to Leakenfield in No. 12 Group. In just 6 weeks of combat, 303 Squadron had achieved 126 confirmed victories, 13 probable victories, and 9 damaged aircraft. This remarkable tally made them the highest-scoring unit of the entire battle, despite entering the fight 2 months after it began. 9 of their pilots achieved ace status by downing 5 or more enemy aircraft. 4 Polish officers, including Flying Officer Witold Urbanowitz with 15 victories, received Distinguished Flying Crosses for their service. After the Battle of Britain, the 303 Squadron and the Polish Air Force continued serving with the RAF, supporting Allied efforts until the war ended. By then, with their incredible numbers, it's no surprise that Polish fighter pilots became beloved figures among all levels of British society. International journalists flocked to airfields to capture their remarkable achievements, while people at restaurants waived their meal bills and bar owners covered their drinks. By 1941, with the immediate threat to the UK diminished, the RAF Fighter Command shifted towards more offensive operations in occupied Europe. The 303 Squadron participated in rhubarb operations, low-level strafing runs targeting German assets on the ground. Shortly after, they upgraded to the Supermarine Spitfire Mark I and began flying offensive sweeps, escorting bombers and engaging in various air-to-ground operations. In August 1942, as preparations intensified for the Allied raid on Dieppe, the squadron temporarily moved to Red Hill. During Operation Jubilee, No. 303 flew alongside No. 317 Polish Fighter Squadron, achieving the highest number of downed enemy aircraft among all Allied squadrons involved. As the Allied forces prepared to launch Operation Overlord, the long-awaited invasion of Normandy, the No. 303 Squadron was also called in to help. On D-Day, the Polish men took to the skies over the landing beaches, flying multiple sorties as Allied forces stormed the coast below. Following the Normandy invasion, the squadron provided air support across occupied France and later transitioned to operations in the Netherlands, targeting German V-1 and V-2 launch sites. On April 25, 1945, now equipped with the North American Mustang Mark IV, they flew their final wartime mission, escorting bombers on a raid over Berchtesgaden, marking the end of their active combat role. Despite being one of the RAF's most effective squadrons in World War II, No. 303 faced complicated recognition post-war. Conflicting accounts exist regarding an invitation to the London Victory Parade in 1946, with some sources claiming they were the only Polish unit invited, which they declined in protest of other Polish units being excluded. Others suggest they were never invited at all. Despite their lack of public recognition, some experts believe the war might not have been won without one of the best fighter units of World War II, the No. 303 Squadron RAF. Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding, Commander-in-Chief of Fighter Command, one of the leaders initially hesitant to deploy Polish pilots into combat, ultimately summarized their contribution in perhaps the most powerful terms, stating, quote, "Had it not been for the magnificent material contributed by the Polish squadrons and their unsurpassed gallantry, I hesitate to say that the outcome of the Battle of Britain would have been the same."